So some of my favorite scenes in the gospel are at the beginning, the call of Jesus to his different disciples. And one of the things that I love is that, especially in Mark and Matthew's gospel, all he has to do is say, "Hey, you, follow me." And they drop everything and they go. And I don't know about you, whenever the Lord's put something on your heart to go and to follow him or to lead him or to go and do something that he might be calling you, but I always squabble. I always ask questions. I always ask for a second opinion. The apostles never did that. They just left everything and followed him. Except when you read Luke, and then you realize it's a little bit of a different story. And I think it's helpful for us to see not as a contradictory experience, but maybe as a deepening experience of that same full-hearted, immediate response, but also that took a little bit of coaxing and inviting. The image that I'd like to give everyone today that has been helpful to me is that of poker. It was made popular, especially in the last decade or so, but I'm thinking of No Limit Texas Hold'em. Right, this game of poker where at any point in time, any player can take all of their chips and push them right into the middle of the table and just say, "I'm all in." And at that, every single player around the table has an equal opportunity to respond in kind. The only response is to answer, "I'm all in," or "I'm all out." And there's no in between. And it makes for a pretty entertaining game. It was on TV, on ESPN, and millions of people watched. There's another strategy, though. Maybe you have an incredible hand, and instead of just saying, "I'm all in" right away, you just put a little bit into the pot, just to invite a couple more people to consider, "My hand isn't all that good, but I can call that." And then after the second and the third time, just a little bit more, it's called the slow play. Just to get people to invest a little bit more, and then finally at the end, they're already invested and they're more open to going all in. Friends, I would propose that our gospel today presents us with the divine slow play on full display. How? Right? If Jesus would have walked right up to Simon and said, "Hey, drop all of your nets, drop all of your profession, leave your family and follow me," he probably would have said, "No way." But what do we see? We see just like a slow invitation of Jesus creeping into Simon Peter's life slowly but surely. And just maybe to appreciate this scene, Simon has been out trying to catch fish all night. This isn't a hobby of his. This is his life. This is his profession. This is the way that he provides for his family. And he's caught nothing. So imagine you're Simon, you're there, right? Imagine the discouragement or the disappointment or the fear that maybe you're experiencing in that moment of not being able to provide for yourself, for your family, or those you care for. You're probably tired, you've been up all night. Maybe you're hungry, you haven't eaten either. And there you are, cleaning your boat, mending your nets. And then comes this Jesus character. And I think we know this, right? The last person that we want to see whenever we're in a place of discouragement, despair, or maybe just misery is a large crowd of excited, energetic, and joyful people. So here's Simon maybe wallowing in his own discouragement, and here comes Jesus with the joy of the gospel fresh off of his lips, all the people coming around him, and Simon's there with 2 boats. And I just have to imagine maybe in his heart he's just praying, "Don't get in my boat. Don't get in my boat. Don't get in my boat." Only to open up his eyes and realize Jesus, without knocking, without inviting him, without asking, is in his boat. Can we appreciate this would have been a little awkward? Imagine if someone just got into your car, didn't knock, didn't ask, said, "Hey, let's go for a ride." Probably "Get out of here, stranger. Who are you?" Right? Get out. And yet Simon's open. And Jesus says, "Hey, can we just go a little bit out? I just want to teach." "All right. I'll give you a little bit, just a little bit of a distance from the shore, that shore where I can have my feet on solid ground, where I can be in control, and I'll give you a little bit." And then Jesus says, "Okay, well, you've given me a little bit. Can we just go out into the deep?" "All right. I can give you a little bit more, right? And look at what Jesus is doing. He does this not only with Simon, he does this with all of us. Sometimes he needs to pull us out of the commotion and the busyness and the noisiness of the life, to get us out of the noisiness of the crowd and just to get us out into the quiet and the solitude of the middle of the sea. Why? He wants to speak to our hearts. He wants to know you, and he wants you to know him. And he needs to get us away. And yet if he was just going to say, hey, we're going to go on a long boat ride, we'd probably say, no way. But I can give you a little bit, this next step. And then Jesus asked something that would have been incredibly difficult. Cast your net into the sea. Not many of us like to be told what to do. Not a few of you likes being told to be quiet a little bit earlier before Mass so that we could go through that Gloria, right? I don't like being told what to do either, right? Especially from someone who doesn't share my profession. So I don't know if any of you are fishermen, but I know fishermen can be a little particular with how they fish, what they fish with, their style, their approach, their bait that they use, how they do it, right? So imagine being told as a fisherman not only what to do, but this is a carpenter. Get back to wood, get back to building things. What are you doing telling me what to do? And yet, he's already given him this much. All right, Jesus, I'll put it out. Here's the slow play, brothers and sisters. Here's the slow play. At any one of these moments, it almost seems too much, and yet a little bit more of an investment from Simon, and he's all of a sudden open to considering putting it out. And what happens whenever he trusts in the Lord? An abundance of fish, more than he can even handle. His nets are tearing. He puts it into the boat. Jesus almost kills Simon today. His boat is almost sinking. Maybe we don't appreciate this. Right? And here's the thing, here's the reality. Whenever we let the Lord in and allow him to bless us, it can get messy. Do you remember Psalm 23? The psalmist speaks of the blessing of the Lord, and he says, my cup overflows. What is an overflowing cup? It's a mess. It's a mess, right? And yet this is the goodness of the Lord, that he wants to bless us. He wants us to experience the generosity of his love. And it's finally at that he realizes, I'm not just in the presence of any other person, this is God. And he says, Lord, at your command, I'll follow you. And he leaves everything. I don't know what this means to you. It means a couple things to me. First, just to say, I really like coming to Hazelwood. I like being with all you at St. Stephen's. It's a joy to be with all of you, those who come to the daily Mass during the week, and then you who are here at 9:30. And yet, I'll be honest, it's been hard. The transition is difficult to come to just a new place, and not just one place, but 4 places. And what's difficult for me is I've realized how impatient I am. I just want to be at a place maybe like a couple months or years down the road where I can really get to know my people and they can know me, and I can have those relationships, those that I've experienced in my last assignments. They're just so meaningful and so powerful, and it's really hard to build relationships whenever you're running around from parish to parish to parish, and whenever even after this 9:30 Mass, I so often have to just run off to the next one at 11 o'clock. So I just want to thank you too, because I'm sure it hasn't been easy for you as well. But thanks for your patience with me and the clergy team. And yeah, I don't know what that's like exactly for you, but I'm sure maybe you also maybe have that hesitation or that temptation just to want, like, I just want to be down the road. I just want to see what it's going to be, and just so that we can get there. I want to know my priest, and I want to be comfortable with him, to know what he's going to do, what he's going to say, how he's going to interact. And yet I don't know right now, and it's hard. And I think this is where Jesus wants to speak, at least to me today, just to trust the process. Can we show up this morning? Can we just give our hearts right now? Can I just be present to all of you and to love you as I can? And not as a perfect priest 10 years down the road, but just me right now in my imperfect self. St. Paul says it great. I am who I am. He says, I was born abnormally. I don't know exactly what that means, but sometimes I can relate. Like, Lord, what did you do? What? Did you make a mistake? Like, I wish I could be better, or I could be this or that. And he's like, no, you're you, and you're who I created you to be, so just be. And maybe one more thing that it means to me, it's not to skip over the process and just to get to the end, and I kind of think of that as the Mass, right? Recently, we've had a great emphasis on the Eucharist. Like, it's really Jesus, that's Him. And so to be able to receive the Eucharist is the most important thing we can do. And yet sometimes we want to reduce it just to that. Or almost we could be tempted to say, like, why don't we just open up a fast food line and a drive-through where we could just give out communion and everyone could get the Eucharist and be on their way? And some people do that. They just receive the Eucharist and they go on their way. And yet maybe to appreciate the slow play of the process of the liturgy of the Mass, to come in and to recognize our sinfulness, to sing the Gloria, to take our eyes off of ourselves and onto the Lord, to go through the liturgy of the Word and to receive the way the Lord wants to speak to our hearts through salvation history. And maybe to sit through a really long homily again by this young priest. Is he going to wrap it up? Right? And yet just to appreciate, like, this is the way the Lord just invites us to, like, not just want to get to the end. Because if we were just to see the end, maybe it would be too much for us. But to go through that process and to not skip just the end for the relationship along the way. So that then whenever we come forward to receive the Lord, we realize that He's all in. And at that point, maybe we can respond to, all right, Lord, I call.